In this class we're going to look at how we use HTML to define lists. Lists are a very useful way of organizing certain kinds of data. And in HTML we have three kinds of lists. We have an unordered list, an ordered list, and a definition list. An unordered list typically looks something like this here. We have Athens, Barcelona, Cork, Dublin, Edinburgh, and we have these bullet points here along the side. Now let's take a look at the HTML that would be used to define this list. Unordered lists use the UL tag in conjunction with the LI tag. Here we start off the unordered list with the UL tag. Now notice at the very end of the list then we close off this UL tag with /UL. Remember, this UL tag occurs in begin-end pairs. Now the first list item here is Athens, and we have LI Athens /LI to finish it off. Now some textbooks and websites will try to tell you that you don't have to finish off the LI tag here, that you can just go on to the next LI straight away, but you can't. LI occurs in begin-end pairs just like UL and just like most of the other tags we've looked at. So now we go on to the next item. So we have LI, Barcelona, and then /LI to finish it off. We go on to the next item, LI, Cork, /LI, and then the next one, LI, Dublin, /LI, and then LI, Edinburgh, /LI. So we have the unordered list set up here with the begin UL and then the end UL tag at the end. And then each individual item inside the list is wrapped up in this LI tag. So it's important to see how these tags are nested together, how they work together, and also it's important to remember to close off every tag that you open. In this illustration here we have these bullet points, but the actual look of the unordered list will be up to the browser. The browser will decide how large to make the text, how large to make the bullet points, whether they're roundy bullet points, pointy bullet points, whatever the color might be. All of that is decided by the browser. All you're saying as the author of the HTML document is that here's an unordered list and here are the contents. It's the browser's job then to decide precisely what that should look like. And that can vary from browser to browser. An ordered list looks very like an unordered list, except that instead of bullet points along the side, there are numbers. And the HTML for an ordered list looks very like the unordered list, except that we use the OL tag instead of the UL tag. So let's look at the HTML for this ordered list here. So you can see it looks much like the unordered list. Now one important point here that often confuses people is that if you look at the HTML for the ordered list, there are no numbers. As the author of the HTML file, you're saying here's an ordered list with these contents. It's up to the browser again to decide how that looks. And it's the browser that actually puts in the numbers along the side. Now that's a useful feature because it means that you can actually reorganize the contents of the ordered list without worrying about the numbers. So if you decided that you wanted to put the bat before the aardvark, you just do that and then bat would be 1 and aardvark would be 2. And it's up to the browser to decide how the ordered list looks. And so it puts in the numbers. The actual HTML itself is fairly familiar to us, because it's just like the unordered list. But we start with OL for ordered list. And again, we finish off OL at the very end. This tag, like most of the others, occurs in begin-end pairs. If you open an ordered list, you must at some stage close an ordered list. And for every OL you have, you're going to have a corresponding /OL. We start with the first list item, which is aardvark. So we have LI, aardvark, /LI. Again, it's important to close off the tag that you open. So next up we have LI, bat, /LI. That gives us the next list item. We have li cheetah /li, li duck /li, and li elephant /li. So again, like the unordered list, each of the list items is wrapped up in an li tag that begins and ends. It's important to close off the tag. Now, like the unordered list, it's up to the browser to decide what it looks like. And of course, it's the browser that puts in the numbers as well. Now, the final HTML list that we're going to look at is the definition list. This isn't nearly as popular or as common as the ordered list and unordered list. A definition list is, like you might expect, typically used for defining things. And so it comes in two parts. We have the term that's being defined and then the actual definition for the term. So here we have coffee, that's the term, and then the definition is drink made from the roasted and ground beans of a tropical shrub, served hot or over ice. Similarly, we are defining tea as a drink made by infusing dried crushed leaves of the tea plant, served hot or over ice again. Each item in the definition list actually comes in two parts. There's the term and the definition. So let's wrap some HTML around this definition list here and see what it might look like. As you'd expect, we start off the definition list with a DL tag. And sure enough, at the very end of the definition list then, we have /DL to close it off. It's very important to close off the tags that you open. DT here marks the start of the term, and then /DT finishes off the term. And then DD marks the start of the actual definition. /DD marks the end of the definition. And then we're starting a new term here. So we have DT to mark the start of the term, /DT to mark the end of the term, and then DD marks the start of the definition, and of course we close it off with /DD. Now again, as with the other lists, the actual look of the definition list will be up to the browser. So the browser might decide, for example, to put the definition in italics. It will decide whether it should be indented or not, whether it should be the same size or not, whether it should be a different color or not. All of that will be decided by the browser. As the author of the HTML document, you're just saying, here's a definition list with these terms and these definitions. Do whatever it is you do with those. Now, this brings us to an important point. When you define an unordered list or an ordered list or a definition list, you're specifying the contents of the list. And then the browser goes away and lays that out according to the rules it has internally. Now, it's sometimes tempting to decide, well, actually, that looks good, but I would like the text to be a little bit bigger. Or I would like the definition terms to be in bold. Or I would like to use different bullet points to the bullet points that are being used by the browser. However, you should resist the temptation to meddle with those structures. Okay? If you use a UL, an OL or a DL, you should do so on a take it or leave it basis. You don't want to go tweaking the look of those things. That's considered very bad practice. Much later on in the course, we'll see how we can explain to the browser how we would like certain things to be done and how we would like them to be displayed. But for the time being, we don't go fiddling with the look and feel of predefined structures. Lists can be nested to form quite complex structures. Here we have an ordered list with Cork, Dublin and San Francisco, and then inside in each of those items we have unordered lists of neighbourhoods in those cities. And you can see how the browser has put numbers on Cork, Dublin and San Francisco, but then on the unordered lists inside, they're in bullet points and you can see that they're indented. Now, the browser might also decide to make the nested items smaller, for example. It might indent them or might not. It might even change the font or the colour depending. But what we're interested in is defining the structure of the nested list. Conceptually, this is simple enough, but what makes it complicated is that we must make sure we close off all of the tags that we open and we must close them off in the appropriate place. So let's have a look at the HTML here. Unfortunately, in order to fit it all onto the slide, it's a bit cramped. But if you're writing this yourself, you'd probably use more lines. But all of the important HTML is still here. So the overall structure is in fact an ordered list with Cork, Dublin and San Francisco. So we can see that it starts with an OL tag. And of course at the very end then we have /OL to finish off the ordered list. Now we start immediately with a list item of the ordered list. And that first item is Cork. However, here's where it starts to get a bit complicated, because as part of Cork we have an unordered list. So we begin that unordered list, and of course that ends before the end of this list item, and then inside in that unordered list we have 3 list items. We have Bishopstown, Toker and Douglas, all as individual list items that make up the unordered list. And that unordered list is part of the list item that contains Cork. So we finished off Cork and we're going on to the next list item of the ordered list. So this gives us Dublin. Now, as part of this list item in the ordered list, we have an unordered list. And that unordered list contains 2 list items. We begin list item rings end / list item, begin list item, Ranelagh / list item. Then we end the unordered list. This /li here is ending the Dublin list item. That's the list item of the ordered list. Finally, we have one more list item, and that's San Francisco. Then as part of that list item, we have inside in that an unordered list. And the first list item in that unordered list is Potrero Hill, and then the second list item is Castro. Now look carefully at the HTML here for this nested list and see how the unordered lists fit inside of the list items of the ordered list. It's important to see precisely where the tags end. So that's HTML lists. We have an unordered list, an ordered list, and a definition list. A few important things to remember about lists. Every single tag that's opened must be closed. And lists are provided on a take it or leave it basis. If you don't like the way the browser lays out your list, tough, leave it alone. And then finally, lists can be nested to create complex structures, but you have to be very careful and very strict with yourself to make sure that everything that's opened is closed in the appropriate place.